All right, guys, I am Dani Williamson, and this is Dr. Cheryl Burdette. I am so excited to have her. Those of you that are not here today are missing it because it is a packed house, standing room only in this office right here. As soon as we go live, and I hear people's stuff going off here, hit share, and then hit your heart buttons, and then hit start a watch party. Because trust me, all of your friends are going to want to hear what Dr. Burdette has to say. She's brilliant, she's hilarious, she is one of the funniest people I've ever met, and she is the smartest thing, and she's very humble. So she owns Dunwoody Labs, and we are thrilled to have her here. We are talking thyroid and gut health tonight, and how your thyroid is not always just a thyroid problem. It could be a gut problem, right? Could be a heavy metal problem, right? Could be an adrenal problem. So we're talking all this today. I'm excited. I'm so excited. But I want to tell you right now, our lemonade, for those of you all that are here, and if you're not here, and you're going to get here before 2 o'clock, we have Lorrie Franckle. Lorrie, come up here.
Hello.
She created the Fat to Energy LemonAid. Ellis is scooting in, so pay attention to Ellen there. Fat to Energy LemonAid, and it is unbelievable. Share with them what it is.
Okay. L-carnitine tartrate powder is an amino acid, and it's naturally lemon flavor, and that's the amino acid that's in red meat. So it helps build muscle, it helps give you energy because it's stimulating the mitochondria, and it also helps with fat burning, lowering cholesterol and triglycerides. And the other ingredient is D-ribose, which is naturally sweet, and it stimulates ATP production, which also gives you energy. So 0 carbs, 0 calories, 0 fat, and no sugar.
No sugar, just a tiny, tiny bit of stevia in it, and it's amazing. I've been drinking it over here, so I love it. And those of you that are vegetarian, you don't get a lot of L-carnitine.
That's
Am I correct?
Yes.
So, and it's very important for brain health and energy and just the whole mitochondrial process, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right, so come get it. Not only is she here today, so we're blessed. She lives in St. Petersburg, Florida. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia. It's 10% off, so and we don't ever put it on sale. So thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you.
And she looks like her product, which is makes me excited. I mean, I love it. So, all right, guys.
Thank you,
So,
Dana.
all right, people, we are talking guts and thyroid. Dr. Cheryl Burdette, she graduated from Bastyr University in Washington State. Those of you who don't know about Bastyr, it is hands down the premier naturopathic doctor school, right? I think it is the best. It is the best. So she is way better than me. She's a naturopathic doctor, so she was trained in this from the get-go. All the money she spent on her education, she learned what she's doing now, unlike me, who spent $200,000 on an education and had to relearn everything to practice functional medicine. So we are honored. She speaks nationwide. She speaks worldwide. No, you just got back from Asia.
Yeah,
She speaks worldwide, and she is at Integrative Family Medicine. You guys have no idea how lucky you are to get to see her, so we're going to let her take it away right now.
Thank you
for being here.
for that amazing intro.
Oh,
And I think the best thing about me is I have good taste and keep good company.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Well, we're blessed to have you. And so you guys listen, take notes, learn, because we may not get her back anytime soon.
I'll be back for you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
And you're really in a fortunate place to be. As you come here, it turns out that you are way more than a thyroid. Even though that's probably what got you in the door in the first place, you're experiencing symptoms of being low thyroid, which it runs your whole metabolism in your body. And for women, we probably think metabolism and we think weight loss, but that is not exclusively what metabolism is. Metabolism is your ability to break down different inflammatory mediators in the body. Metabolism is how well you're going to clear histamine. Metabolism is how well you're going to get toxins out of your system. So when the thyroid is off, everything in the system begins to be hypofunctioning. So when we think about low thyroid function, we think about fatigue, and we think about weight loss, and we think about constipation, and we think about changes in our period, and we think about just not feeling like ourselves. However, there's a breakdown in standard of care because when you you figured it out already. That's why you came here. As much as Dani helps you, I'm going to say that it was you that figured out there was something with your thyroid, and that's when you went online and you figured things out and you came here. Now her job is to help you figure out how to treat your thyroid in particular. So while she probably sees, how many people you see a day?
Oh, I only see anywhere between 10 and 12 a day.
And that's because she's not spending 7 minutes with her patients. A standard of care place could pack in much more. But if you're really going to get into detail about what happens, you're going to need to spend a good bit more time with people. But even so 10 to 12 people a day, I can guarantee you that at the end of that day, it is not the same treatment plan for every single person.
Oh, good Lord.
Even though the practice is based around thyroid function, and she's very careful to say, I'm going to stay within my area of expertise, and probably people in this room have figured that out. If it's something that she feels like this is not her area of expertise, she wants you to have the best. In the rare moments that that's not her, she's going to refer you out to somebody else because confident in what she does. And again, how do we reach each person where they're at? We make sure they're getting the best care for them. So 10 to 12 people a day seeking thyroid treatment are not going to come in here and all get the same thing.
That's right.
Because you're not simply a thyroid. You're a human being. And so in order to best address your thyroid function, it means looking at why is your thyroid function not working like it should, which is going to be different for every person. And I would say we can pull your treatment plans all week and they're not going to all look the same.
That's exactly right. Every single one of you aren't. If you're a thyroid patient, you're on something different. Thyroid, synthroid, compounded thyroid, WP, nature thyroid, west thyroid, tirosine. Oh, good Lord. It goes on and on and on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're going to
Yeah.
talk
All
about
different.
some of that adjunct support and why you're doing these things. And it's why you're able to get better results because you tried the other already, most likely. You went in and you said, here's who I am. And maybe you spent 7 minutes with someone and they said, no, that's not who you are. I ran a couple tests, a TSH and a T4, and I'm sorry that you think this is who you are, but let me tell you, I've met you for 7 minutes and now I'm going to tell you who you are. Well, I have always found that to be awful to disgusting, somewhere in between there, because no matter how many articles I read and how much I study and how many books that we're looking at all the time, we are never going to know more about you than you know about you. And so when you start dismissing what a patient is saying, you're going to miss the clues. And so that time with people to really get that understanding of what is your symptom? Is it constipation? Is it fatigue? Is it menstrual irregularities? Where are you on the thyroid continuum becomes quite important. Standard of care says this. Standard of care says thyroid function, we're going to look at two things. We're going to look at TSH, the signal the brain sends to the thyroid, and then from there, we're going to look to see the predominant thyroid hormone that's made, one called T4. It's a good start. It's not awful, but it's such a small slice of the puzzle. In fact, that T4 isn't even your most active thyroid hormone. That's T3. So isn't it curious? You wouldn't even look at the one that has the most activity. In addition to that, you also make T2 and T1. There's not a lab out there that measures those at this point, but we know they help with energy. We know they help us overcome fatigue. And so that's why she's going to be picky about some of the things that she uses with you, like the Armor or the West Thyroid or the Nature Thyroid, because they are natural, and so they're going to provide naturally all the things that the thyroid would provide as well. T4, T3, T2, and T1. Now, if you're on Synthroid, that's a synthetic T4, but I would hazard a guess that you're not leaving here just with Synthroid. And the point is even though some of these natural things might look more like our own thyroid, it still doesn't mean that's the one that's always best for every person. So realizing sometimes that T3 is too much and just this T4 is what you need, but we're going to surround you and the other things that are going to be supportive there. So there they start with their TSH and T4, and maybe that was a normal range, although what's on the lab test isn't really what is considered normal, and not just by us, by the Journal of Endocrinology, what should be the standard in terms of how we're all looking. And I can remember 15 years ago, maybe a little more than that, when the Journal of Endocrinology came out and said, hey, one of the two major things that they're using to look at thyroid function, TSH, is horribly flawed. In fact, that reference range is twice as large as it should be. The Journal of Endocrinology said what we're standardly doing is missing half the population. Now think about how many people that you know that are fatigued, that have weight gain, that have trouble sleeping, that have problems with periods, that have headaches, that have cold hands, cold feet, nails that break, hair that falls out, right? Who's left? And so, yeah, and so the thing that we're using to look for this is missing half those people. And so when you go, no, but I know I have this, I've read so much, this fits me like a glove, and that comes back in that range that we know is flawed, they say, you know what, no, you just need to work harder at that weight loss, and this is more in your head. Oh, but I do have a solution for that pretty little head of yours. Probably an antidepressant. That's what you need.
It's a Prozac deficiency.
Right.
Always.
I mean, right? And
I had that one time.
We learned all about our Prozac receptors in our body in our physiology book, right? No, they're not Prozac receptors. And guess what? Also depression, another symptom of low functioning thyroid. So you can take all the Prozac and all the SSRIs, but it's not treating root cause. It might prop you up some, that's true. But there's not going to be a good opportunity to eventually get off that. When you treat root cause, this is a way to build the system up so that you need sometimes even less of the thyroid medication itself. And I bet that, and unlike standard of care, where the general trend is that you'll start on this dose and you'll need more, and you'll need more, and you'll need more, and you'll need more, you probably aren't experiencing that. She's probably finding a dose for you, and sometimes everyone's different. We have to kind of ramp up, but more often than not, able to hold that dose, and sometimes even to decrease it, because when we're thinking about building back tissue health and building back whole person health, a lot of these things can recover. Now this is another shortcoming. Function goes down in general. That's called primary hypothyroidism. There's a secondary hypothyroidism where the brain's not doing the right thing either. But this is the major thing that they're thinking about in standard of care. And so that TSH is missing half the population. So from there, they're going to look at T4. And T4 is not even the most active thyroid hormone. Why do they do that? You know what? I used to hem and haw about this for a lot of years. And well, maybe this and maybe that. And I don't know why. It doesn't make good sense. It's not what is in any medical physiology book out there. Where if you went to Johns Hopkins, you went to Mayo Clinic, the same physiology book that we all use, open it up. It says conversion from T4 to T3. This is the one that's most active. And so there's not a great reason to look at it. What they'll say is that everyone's going to convert, so everyone should be fine. Because the physiology book says that. Well, you know what's in a physiology book? Normal. And do you feel normal? That's probably not what got you here. It probably wasn't like, everything's lovely and I feel great. I think I'll just go, out for some bonus health care. No, it'd be nice if we could, we're in a situation where we could all engage in the best preventative medicine all the time. But that's really not the reality, right? We're busy, we've got things to do. It's not until we're really dragging that we realize, okay, now's the time I got to make some space for myself. So physiology book, normal, but then we also went on to our next set of classes that were called Pathology, where there's about symptoms and things that are abnormal. So it may well be that you're not converting to the most active thyroid hormone, and it's not even being measured. So that's a bummer, and it's not even hard. Let's say that all they were going to do is a TSH and a T4. Okay, they do it, it's normal, but you still have symptoms, then wouldn't the next logical step be, maybe we should look at something else? And I'm sure that is what you experience here. We're going to look at a lot of things because we're going to figure out what's going on in terms of your thyroid function. So, we got TSH and we got T4, and we're fortunate enough now that we're going to look at T3, but we're not even going to just look at T4 and T3, we're going to look at free T4 and T3, another thing that's not done in standard of care. Well, free is the ones that are running around and are able to do something, and the ones that are able to do something are the ones that bind to receptors and tell the tissue to do the job. So if you're not measuring free, you don't even know which ones are the most active. So there's that. And then from there, your body says, woo, I'm under stress. And if I'm under stress, metabolically shut the system down. Why does the body do that? Well, because evolutionarily speaking, stress was, it's winter, there's no food to hunt or gather, so you need to be tired all the time. You need to hibernate. Like the bear, you need to go into the cave for the winter and not need much food and not need to go out. Well, stress is a million other things at this point besides not having enough not having food, right? And so stresses our day job and our families and everything else that's layered on top of that, but it still has the same response in the body. So the body says, shut it down. You've got to hibernate. Not really an option, right? We can't really crawl into a cave like a bear. Sounds nice a little bit. I might prefer like an island in the Bahamas versus the bear cave, but wherever. But it's not really what we get to do. But the body does the same thing. That's something called reverse T3. It's an inactive thyroid hormone. And again, they're not looking at that. And you go, why? Why, if I think of all those symptoms I listed and how many people have that, and if this would be an effective treatment, why wouldn't you look at it? Well, one reason that makes pseudo sense is that you wouldn't bother measuring something if you didn't have a treatment for it. And high reverse T3 means the system is under stress. And for us, treating stress would be treat your body. And so that's another test that you might see come along, an adrenal stress test. Adrenals, tiny little glands, they sit on top of your kidneys, they make your adrenaline, your get up and go hormones, and they help us manage stress. And so then the treatments would be things like making sure that you're getting good exercise or some deep breathing techniques or doing some meditation or some yoga. And standard of care defines treatments as something pharmacologic.
Right.
So in their brain, there's not a treatment. But for us, there's a world of treatments. So we have all kinds of different natural supplements and all kinds of different botanicals, things like Adrenamax that help the adrenals to recover, a stress response in a bottle. So a botanical in here is one called Withania somnifera. So that's the Latin name. Doesn't that sound fancy like I know something? But anyway, somnifera, like somnolence, like sleeping. And so it helps us to relax and calm down. And this Withania, or ashwagandha is another name for it, has been used thousands of years in Ayurvedic medicine. And they did a study where they took rats and they put them in buckets. And they gave one group the ashwagandha and the other group got no ashwagandha. And then they watched how long can you stay, can you swim and swim and swim before eventually you sink to the bottom and die.
Oh.
And yeah, I know, so it's a little bit gruesome. And what they found was the group that got the ashwagandha or the Withania was able to swim much longer, and on autopsy what they saw is they were handling stress better. So I'm talking about it as being the stay afloat herb and the stay off the bottom of the bucket herb.
Yeah, I love ashwagandha. Stay off the bottom of the bucket. I love ashwagandha.
And don't we feel like that sometimes? We're just racing, trying to stay afloat. And so, when the body goes, you're under stress, shut it down.
Yes.
It's the exact wrong direction, isn't it? Because we need that T3, we need that energy, but yet now we're shut down. We want to sleep all the time. We don't handle stress as well. And so again, it's not just the thyroid, but what other things are going to support that thyroid? And adrenals become one part of that.
Yeah.
Another thing she's picky about is what you eat. I know. And nobody really came here to be told you can't have this, you can't have that. You came here because you want your life back. You want things back, not taken away. Low thyroid function's already taken enough away. However, what you also probably came here for was to be empowered and to be given some tools where you could be put in control of yourself and not merely be at the mercy of somebody who's looking at a couple of markers and telling you it's all in your head. And food is a platform that gives us that. When you think about your gut, it is something the size of a tennis court. And so if I were to stretch it out, so you got a tennis court jammed in there. And so now think about if all over that tennis court, if I'm doing something that's creating more inflammation in the body, or if I'm doing something that nurtures you or that tennis court, two entirely different things. And so you might well realize, yes, that's where I absorb nutrients, so that makes good sense. I'm going to need nutrition. And thyroid is so nutritionally intense. When we say T4 or T3, that T is tyrosine. And so tyrosine is an amino acid. So tyrosine, you have to have it to build the backbone for thyroid function. So when someone tells you there's no research on nutrition, I beg you to go ask them to go look back to their physiology book, because the physiology book says otherwise. This is the first building block. Now what's the 4 or the 3? 4 iodines or 3 iodines. So if you're nutritionally compromised, you cannot make your own thyroid hormone. It's entirely made up of things that we need from the diet. So if your tennis court is being battered and beaten by foods that could actually be healthy for most people, but your immune system has turned on you and is starting to make a response to these foods that's a confused response, then now you're not going to absorb the nutrients that you need. So yeah, you're going to need some Synthroid, and you're going to need more next year, and you're going to need more than the year after, and eventually you're going to get to the top level of the dose where they're going to say, I can't give you any more, and you're still going to need more because your own thyroid is not recovering. So that's why she's going to look and see what kind of foods that you're eating and what foods respond well in your body and which ones don't. And it can be devastating because you already figured out that food makes a difference.
We already had this conversation this morning about asparagus. Asparagus is good, Dani. It says you can't eat it. I said, but it's not good for you. It's poking holes in your tennis court, Sandy.
And then there you are, and you think you've made all these positive changes, and you already did the things that we know to do. I know I should eat less sugar, and I should have less dessert, and all that. And yet you're like, freaking asparagus? I've got to worry about that too. And I get it. It does more than that. It does seem unfair. It does seem unfair, but she's not going to leave you there because
That's right.
it's not that you can never have asparagus again. We're gonna spackle, and we're gonna heal that tennis court, and we're gonna get it back to where it's
spackle the tennis court. That's great. I love that.
It might really be bad for a tennis court.
No, I think this is
my
wonderful.
home improvement might be lacking a little bit of skills, but
Spackle the guts. I love that.
That's leaky gut you're talking about.
Yes,
leaky
she's talking
gut.
leaky gut.
And so thank you, because that's the next part where standard of care is really leaving us in a lurch. And so what you might have also noticed is that she's measuring antibodies, things that could attack your own thyroid. Your immune system is confused. TPO antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies. And so why? Why has the immune system become confused and attacking your own tissue? Well, one reason can be leaky gut. So here we are, this gut lining the size of a tennis court, and it should be a nice thick barrier. Think about a wall or around a fort. Think about the moat or that big front door that nobody can get in, and then that battle that's going on. That's how you should be. You should have a nice wall protecting your insides. That's what the gut lining should serve as. But you're eating foods that you think are good for you, poor asparagus, and yet your immune system is confused by that, and so it starts to irritate and bother, and when it bothers, it bangs down that wall of that fortress, and you become more permeable. And if you become permeable or leaky, now even foods that are good come through intact. Well, when this wall was here, what I got was foods coming in, and then those foods get broken down by the wall to little nutrients, vitamins and minerals, things that we can use. The body says, great, I can use this, package it up, move it out to the tissue, move it to the brain, move it to the bones, utilize it. But when I'm leaky, now things come through intact. Bigger pieces of asparagus or broccoli or spinach or even bugs like bacteria, and the immune system goes, whoa, that's not supposed to be here, and it begins to attack whatever that is. And as it attacks that food can have some amino acids that look similar to your own thyroid. So that antibody's not that smart. It attacks the food and attacks other things that look like it, and so it begins to do damage to your own thyroid. And it turns out there are parts of the immune system that, when they're confused, do more damage to what's going on. So we work together, and I'm from Dunwoody Labs and utilize a test that we developed there. That's one of the only tests that looks at multiple ways that the immune system could attack your thyroid. And one of the big ways that the immune system gets confused, and one of the big players in terms of damaging the thyroid, are not even just these antibodies, but something called complement. So if you've done a standard allergy test, you go, I've done this already, I don't want to do it again, or they pricked you, or maybe even drew some blood, that's only looking at something called IgE, and it's not the immune confusion that's most important in terms of thyroid function. It's important, you'll feel lousy, it'll still mess up your immune system, so it's better to look at all of these things, but we also want to look at the things in the immune system that are most likely doing damage. And so that's not just your IgE, but your IgG and your complement. So looking at all of you and all of your immune system and all of these places where we could go astray. So when the gut becomes more permeable, it ignites the immune system goes on high alert, you make these antibodies, it destroys your thyroid. Here's what standard of care says. Standard of care says, Once you have those antibodies,
Yep.
you're always going to have those
Yep.
antibodies. We're never going to look at them again. How often do you see antibodies go down?
Oh, every day.
Every day.
Every day.
You know,
Has anybody in here had their antibodies go down with me?
Mine went down, but came back up.
Yeah. Well, they will come back up, right? If things get jarred up or stress or the holes keep, reopen, your spackling falls apart, what have you. But yes, I have a patient last week, 2 weeks ago, 100% remission. I mean, no antibodies, none, nothing. But she's worked so hard. I watch them go down, and then some seasons they'll go back up. Absolutely. But the endocrinologist will tell you, and I was taught. Well, I wasn't taught much about thyroid, but what little I was taught was there's nothing you can do about it. It's an autoimmune disease. There's no reason to ever check those antibodies again. Why would you waste your money? Because I see a lot of patients who will go see an endocrinologist as well because for whatever reason they want to double dip, and that's totally fine. And the endocrinologist will always say, why is she drawing a T3, free T3, and why is she checking your antibodies? It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's unbelievable to me.
And it's true. They never will go down if you don't do a treatment for them.
That's right.
I would concede that. And since they never treat them and they never look again, it makes sense that they would think that they're always going to stay elevated. But there are plenty of things that you can do to build your fortress wall back, to put the immune system back on track. And so something like this, we call it a functional food. That's not to imply that all other foods are dysfunctional necessarily, but there are things in here that are directly related to building the gut lining back. Think about like Lincoln logs. They're called tight junctions, and they fold back together again. So your glutamine that's in here is one of the big ways of doing that. Or there are things in here that are anti-inflammatory, things that come from turmeric or that come from raspberries, different amino acids that calm the immune system back down again. And so we can we can work with you to get the gut lining back to where it should be, which means that you're not always going to have to stay away from asparagus. This test isn't done to take things away permanently. It's to find where the holes are, fix the holes, and get people back in balance. And so as the antibodies come down, as you start to feel better, and these are going to be times where you might reintroduce some of these foods, and what you'll find is that they're not causing destruction like they used to. So that's what would be considered a workup. In standard of care, a thyroid workup would be TSH and T4.
If you're lucky, T4. If you're lucky. Now, I do see more and more T4s, but many times it's just a TSH. Just a TSH, which misses about 80% of all thyroid problems. Easy.
And it's the one that fluctuates the most. So it's particularly curious that you would choose the one that fluctuates the most as your overall barometer.
You're much nicer than me. Particularly curious.
So, I mean, because you could have taken your thyroid medication that morning and forgotten, and it's going to be low, but that doesn't mean that, and so the brain's saying, I have enough right now. But if you're not looking at the pool of actual thyroid hormones, how do you know? It doesn't make good sense. This is not what we were taught in physiology. There's a breakdown in terms of standard of care of how these things play out. So you got your TSH, you got your T4, you got your more active T3, you got your reverse T3 because of stress, and then you got your antibodies. So that's a good starting place. But still, why is there a problem in you? It could be leaky gut, and so you're eating foods that agitate the immune system, and as we take those away, that will begin to make things better. It could be that the adrenals aren't working like they should, and so you don't handle stress well, and so this is what's causing more of that stress thyroid hormone, that reverse T3. That could be true. It could still be other things. So another thing that it could be is too much free radicals in your body. And you've heard about free radicals. Those are the ones that travel around, they damage your DNA, they could be responsible for increasing your risk of cancer. We don't want them. They come from pollution like the lead that's in exhaust and the mercury that's in fish and the glyphosate, which is a pesticide on top of all the food we eat. I mean, it's designed to kill weeds. So it is also
but we put it in our vagina every month as well too, with our tampons and our pads. So I'm telling you, it's coming from every area, top to bottom. You're getting glyphosate. It's unbelievable.
And we've been saying for years it's bad, and finally there's a huge class action suit. They're saying, and we're now they're now realizing that yes, there's an increased risk of cancer from that. So hopefully other countries don't utilize it like we do.
Right.
So other countries have figured this out, but I'm gonna say that there's probably some monetary reasons.
Follow the money
that,
trail. Follow
I'd
the
love
money
to say
trail.
it's popular here. That being said, it's a wonderful way to skew the immune system, to cause us to be more compromised and to create more free radicals. The thyroid hates free radicals. If I have too many free radicals in my body, and in fact, actually, you have to make a certain free radical as you make thyroid hormone. You make something called, you make hydrogen peroxide. So that's a byproduct of your own thyroid hormone. It's okay, the body can handle it well, and you have systems to handle it well. You have antioxidant systems too. So we think about antioxidants like from the orange, getting the vitamin C, or from some of the walnuts, getting the vitamin E, and you're absolutely right about that. Those are great antioxidants, and those are things that are good for our body. But our body is wise, and it has antioxidant enzyme systems too. And what's fascinating about those things, the one in the thyroid is called glutathione peroxidase. The name's not important to remember, but hold on to that glutathione part though. So what's fascinating about our own antioxidant enzyme systems is they work better. We're wise. The body is wise. They go for 72 hours. When you take an antioxidant, as soon as it sees a free radical, it's eaten up. So if we can turn on our own antioxidant systems, we can have a more profound way of dealing with things. So every time I make a thyroid hormone, I make a little free radical. But some people's antioxidant systems are suffering. They're not working well because of maybe all the glyphosate, or maybe just genetically it was a weak spot. And then this is one of the things that we see that defines cancer, is that genetically you don't have as good a level of antioxidant systems. And in fact, there's some similarity between breast tissue and thyroid tissue. And so one of those other nutrients that we talked about, when iodine is low and you don't make thyroid hormone as well, it also compromises the breast tissue. So getting the iodine up will help in terms of reducing your risk of breast cancer as well. So this enzyme system in the thyroid, it should be protecting you and calming down those free radicals. But for some of us, it's just not working as well. So when you have an abundance of free radicals, too many there, more than you can keep up with, that rips up your thyroid hormone, begins to tear it apart. And I think about Cinderella going to the ball and her sisters ripping that dress off of her. Well, that's the same thing that's happening here. And now, again, to the immune system, you look funny. You're messed up. And so the immune system says, I better attack you. So these are those antibodies being high again. And so this is why she wants you to eat right and get more antioxidants in your diet. But she also might look at some measures of oxidative stress for you. If from the history of maybe you live near something that's particularly toxic, or maybe on like a host of medications that could also create more oxidative stress, this would be something that we want to consider. And bonus, because if you figure out that you have more oxidative stress, treating it's not only going to help your thyroid, but it's going to reduce your risk of cancer too. A third bonus, and I could probably list about 50 bonuses of having good antioxidants, but a third bonus is it makes your other hormones work well too. When there's more oxidative stress, it knocks back at our hormones. It rips up that estrogen too, and that funny looking estrogen is what can increase the risk of cancer. It's not estrogen itself, but these metabolites of estrogen, or the destruction of estrogen. So if we can because if it were estrogen itself that caused breast cancer, we'd all get breast cancer at 23, not 63. You have way more estrogen at 23, right? So we know it can't be estrogen.
So wasted on the youth. All that estrogen. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? I mean, it's our age that we need the perky face and boobs and everything, right? And strong bones.
Yes, and the reason estrogen does that is because it turns on these antioxidant systems too. That's why it's youthifying. But we can do that with other antioxidants like you find in your OptiGHI. We can do that with some of the other broccoli sprout extracts. There's a whole bunch of xenoprotects. There's a whole bunch of ways of doing this to make us feel better, look better, do better. And so, not only will it protect all of you, but it'll protect your thyroid too, get your thyroid hormone not being ripped up by free radicals, looking more normal, and the immune system goes, okay, and those antibodies begin to go down. This is another test that might be looked at, and this is why that can be important. Another piece that might be looked at is intestinal barrier assessment, and that's back to that wall again. So your wall could be broken down by foods you're eating, so we want to examine that. And we also want to see, are there other markers at play that are causing the gut to be leaky? So one of those could be something called zonulin. And so these foods could rip you up and make you more permeable from damage. But we can also have a system where this zonulin is being made, too much of it, and zonulin's like hitting the garage door button. Boom, the wall opens from zonulin. And so zonulin, we learned from researchers at Harvard, Alessio Fasano, one of my favorite nerd crushes, because he discovered this zonulin that makes us leaky, and we can see it, and we can measure it, and we can treat it. And how beautiful is that? Because for years we were told we were crazy for doing all this, even though patients got better. So proof is in the gluten-free, dairy-free pudding, right? But this validates what we've been doing. If there's a marker that tells it to happen, we can measure it, we can treat it. And what he says is, zonulin goes up before the onset of an autoimmune condition. So that Hashimoto's, those antibodies, that's an autoimmune condition. So if we see that, and what he also says is, you're not genetically stuck in place. You weren't born with Hashimoto's.
That's right.
You weren't born
with migraine headaches or lupus.
It happened at some point.
That's right.
So what was the trigger? And he says it's an environmental trigger, but for him, the environmental trigger is the leaky gut. Because when the gut becomes leaky, things flood in, and zonulin is one of the things that tells that to occur. So we can treat that, and we can treat it in beautiful ways. We can treat it with things like our IG26 plus dairy-free. And so these are immunoglobulins, well, and also probiotics. Immunoglobulins are one of the things that are very high in breast milk. And now think about a kiddo who gets the opportunity to breastfeed. We don't always get to breastfeed. It doesn't work out for all of us. This is not a blame or a guilt thing, but we know that if it does work out and we're able to breastfeed, we know that one of the things that happens with that is that you're less likely to have allergies, you're less likely to have infections, you're less likely to have autoimmune conditions. And breast milk delivers immunoglobulins. So you're already coming to someone that's asking you to do weird stuff, right? But at least she's not asking you to go out and find a way to breastfeed. She's figured out a way to give you immunoglobulins in a formula like this instead.
Go to the breast milk bank.
Right. So it's not as weird as it could be. But so these immunoglobulins, they look a lot like that zonulin, and they block zonulin from being able to hit the garage door and make it go up. Another thing these immunoglobulins do is they nurture that tennis court, that gut lining, and they build up the thickness there so things are less able to come into the body. The probiotics that are there as well help to send a signal to the immune system to calm down. So all of these things working together, and so you can quickly see that your thyroid issue might not be the same as your thyroid issue, might not be the same as your thyroid issue. Other things that happen along that pathway. So that T4 to T3, that conversion that happens, it actually doesn't happen here in the thyroid. T4 goes out into the body and comes here to the liver to be converted to T3. So now, let's say that you're somebody that I can't have coffee after 4 p.m. It's going to keep me up all night. If I walk into some place where there's candles burning or someone has some cologne on even a little bit, super upsets me. Very sensitive to that. Or how about pregnancy? When I was pregnant, oh gosh, smells really got to me that don't get to me now. Why? Because when you're pregnant, huge levels of hormones that your liver is having to deal with all the time. And if you're not pregnant and have those issues, it means your liver is struggling to detoxify. And again, the body's wise. It tries to help us out. I'm struggling. My filter's on overload in terms of getting toxins out. So don't give me more stuff. This is not good for me. I need to get out of this environment. And so if the liver is struggling, but yet this is where you're going to make the more active thyroid hormone, we need to think about detox. We need to think about organic food. We need to think about things like the Xenoprotects and the other nutrients that help the liver to work better. And so again, it's not just treating this, it's treating the whole person, and it may well be treating this too. So when we do detox programs and we clean the system up, this works better. We can make more of the active thyroid hormone. That reverse T3, that thing's a bummer, because not only does reverse T3 say shut the system down, remember evolutionarily it's saying there's no food to hunt and gather. So lots of reverse T3 is a lovely way to put on lots of weight. Even when you are running every day, eating nothing but salad with chicken on top, if your thyroid is compromised, you don't burn calories in the same way. And that reverse T3 says store more fat. So even the best diet, your friend goes on the same diet, I lost 5 pounds. and you've lost nothing, you maybe gained 2, and you know she was cheating, she wasn't doing as well as you were. When you change calories and that doesn't change metabolically what's happening in your body, it means your metabolic system's broken. So another way that we can help in terms of that reverse T3 is this nutrient called alpha-lipoic acid. And this is a great nutrient. It's anti-cancer. It pulls metals out of the body. It's a beautiful antioxidant. When they did studies with alpha-lipoic acid at the doses that are in here, and the doses that are in here are 600 milligrams per capsule. Now, go to your GNC. Go online. Try to find one tablet that's 600 milligrams.
That's right.
You won't.
Do you need
don't waste your time.
Do you absolutely need that much? You do?
Especially to get that reverse T3 down, and in terms of what the studies say. So if we're talking about weight loss parameters, they talk about 1,200 milligrams twice a day. And so usually, if you find something from GNC or someplace else, you find 50 or 100. So you know those capsules that you don't want to take? A great way to add 12 extra capsules is a different form of ALA. Now, also go try to take those 12 capsules of ALA, alpha-lipoic acid. If you take them all at once, you'll probably feel a burn from that. And that doesn't really encourage me to take something the next day or the next day like I really need to in order to get well. This one's controlled release. So when you release a little bit at a time, you don't get that burn either. So there's a reason you're getting things here and not just someplace else, because she's really thought about the formulas that are being utilized, and they're not the same as a GNC. Other things that happen when you're out there in that environment is that it's a buyer beware market. They aren't looking at every batch to measure what's in there, to measure excipient ingredients, to measure is it contaminated with things. So the lines that you're working with here are lines that have been measured by independent labs to verify the label claims and to make sure when you're thinking you're getting an antioxidant, you're not getting sawdust and mercury. Because that's what a lot shows up a lot in supplements out there. So this can lower reverse T3. When you lower reverse T3, you begin to lose more weight. You put the thyroid back where it should be, and it actually, because it's an antioxidant, can help with some of that antibody issue as well. So it's complicated. It's not a TSH, and it's not just a TSH and a T4. It's a human being, and it's how all these other pieces are interrelating to it. So it's going to be likely that you might look at foods and what you're sensitive to and what you need to do there in terms to make that better. She might even make you poop in a cup, and she might make you do that 3 days in a row, and then you're going to have to package that up, and you're like, why is she
Put it in your
torturing
neighbor's
me?
mailbox. That's all right. Put it in your neighbor's mailbox and let it go out. And so I do tell them that, but I'm joking. Don't do that. Can you imagine working in the stool study lab and opening those poop samples?
Let's hope they're well paid.
I hope so. And so when I was talking to the guy from the lab, he said, well, it doesn't smell like roses in there, but you know, it's okay. They've got quite a bit of ventilation and all that. Yeah.
Kind of suit.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the stool study, the 3-day stool study, I love. Yes, talk about that. That's
Because your thyroid's not helping you out, like I said, you have a tendency to being constipated. That's one of the symptoms. We know there's an interrelationship. Thyroid controls what's called peristalsis, or gut movement. So when this gets off too, but it's bidirectional. If this is off again, it can affect the thyroid function.
Yep.
And so one of the things that you're looking for in there, I talked about foods being a way to bat until you break the walls and things flood in. Well, Turns out it's not just foods in your gut, but bugs in your gut as well. Those are the two ways that you're going to break down the wall. So if you come in and you've been on elimination diets and you've taken things out and you've never really seen any difference with that, or maybe it made some difference but didn't quite get you there, if it's not a food, it's probably a bug. And that stool test is going to tell us if there's a bug there. Now maybe you're thinking, if I had a bug in my GI tract, I would know. I would have either constipation or diarrhea or gas or bloating all the time. Not necessarily. They can create these inflammatory signals that you don't feel here, but move through the rest of the body and cause problems elsewhere. In fact, that complement that's measured on that food test, you might not feel it here, but it's one of the things that shows up in the research in terms of causing depression. When we create inflammation here, it doesn't stay here. There are things called interleukins, called IL-6 and IL-8, and they travel around the body. And they're really you're likely to feel them or experience them in genetically where you're the weakest. So you might have a gut of steel, I can eat everything, but that everything is still creating some irritation, but I have a tendency towards depression. And that IL-6, I know, sorry for all the immunology, but IL-6, that inflammatory mediator, travels and it goes to your brain. And when it goes to your brain, it wreaks havoc. So normally, in terms of good brain function, we make good levels of serotonin, and serotonin is the one that keeps us from being depressed and even helps us sleep at night. And we make it from nutrition again. We make it from amino acids. Remember Thanksgiving and turkey and making you sleepy? Well, that's making you sleepy because turkey has tryptophan. Tryptophan makes serotonin, and serotonin goes on to make melatonin. So we get it from diet. And when I'm inflamed, that tryptophan, that amino acid from protein, it can't go down the pathway like it should. That slide where it should go to make serotonin is blocked, and the roadway is tied off. And so now that tryptophan, instead of making serotonin, it does a completely different thing in your body because of the inflammation, and often from the inflammation that's gut-based. That IL-6 blocks that pathway, and now that tryptophan, instead of making a molecule that makes us feel good, makes molecules that make us feel yucky. Chymeric acid, quinolinic acid, not important, but they make us ache and they make us depressed. And so now let's think about it. Here you are, you're depressed. It was actually because of your thyroid, but that's not being treated because your TSH and your T4 are fine. And so it must be in your head, and we have a great treatment for that, and here's an SSRI, an antidepressant. And you're like, okay, well, how long am I going to be on this? Oh, well, we'll try it for a period of time, and if you feel better, then you'll get off. However, nobody's addressing root cause. So that inflammation is still happening. You're not making your own serotonin. Interestingly, that serotonin also inhibits one more thing in the gut, something called diamine oxidase, that breaks down histamine. So now you're going to have more histamine. More histamine is more inflammation. We have histamine receptors in the brain. It makes us more agitated, and it's neuroexcitatory. So you haven't treated the root cause. You haven't addressed the inflammation, because not your own fault, because nobody talked to you about that. And then on top of it, now the medication is inhibiting something that was breaking down histamine. So now there's even more inflammation. So now you try to clean up the diet and eat good proteins, but that protein is blocked. It can't make serotonin. So you need more of the SSRI, you need more, and it becomes impossible to get off of it. It's not that meds are bad and natural things are good. It's all good at the right person in the right place in the right time. But what the natural therapies give us is a way to build up the tissue, a way to build you up and to create a platform so now that we can change what's going on. So now we change diet, we get rid of those foods that are inflammatory. Maybe there was a stool test and we found a bacteria, and that bacteria was creating inflammation. You weren't feeling it here, and we can use natural things to kill it off and some good probiotics in its place to make sure it doesn't come back again. Okay, that was all creating some oxidative stress, and that was ripping up your thyroid hormone, or some free radicals that were ripping up your thyroid hormone. Get some antioxidants on board. Those antioxidants are also anti-inflammatory. So now, all of a sudden, when you change that and you figure out root cause, and we've addressed your thyroid too, which is the real cause of depression, Now you can begin to back down that SSRI, that medication that was there for the depression. But now, because the inflammation is more controlled, now you're able to take your dietary amino acids, your dietary protein, and convert them into the neurotransmitters that you needed. Now, because the gut's intact, you're not making antibodies that attack your thyroid. And that pattern is, instead of needing more and more and more external medication over time, what you see is leveling out, feeling better, being able to get rid of some things like the SSRIs, being able to lower antibody function, getting the thyroid to work better, and moving more and more and more towards a state of remission. And so it's not that a med is bad and nutritional things are good. It's that if we can use them together, we can figure out what's going on in your body. And as we address the root cause in the individual, it sets the stage for getting things back to where they need to be. Of course, this is not something that happens in standard of care, because how could it? How could you address every single person in here with just a TSH and just one medication? It doesn't make sense. Let's say you had your thyroid removed. We know it makes 4 things. And now we're just going to replace one of them. Of course, it doesn't make sense. You are more than a thyroid. As women, you're also more than a uterus. And we often get broken down into just those areas. We're a human being. And there's many reasons for thyroid to be dysfunctional, as there are people in this room. And when you think about who's the individual in front of you, it creates an opportunity for us to get well and to feel better. And to move through doing this through diet and lifestyle and doing crazy things like yoga and shopping at Whole Foods and eating at True Food and all of this. But because it nourishes who you are, it nourishes your cell, it nourishes your tissue, it nourishes what I call in research, they say N means the study group, N of 50, N of 100. But really, in the end, it's the N of 1. And when we can look at all of this picture, the process, then we can figure out who the N of 1 is, and we can do therapies to make each person better.
Oh my goodness, girl, that was amazing. And Ella just held up her timer. We have 5 minutes left, so that was great. So we're going to ask questions, but we're going to log off here.
Puppy there too.
I know, that's my bulldog.
I didn't notice the time actually. I thought she was flashing me.
Yeah, that's Harlan. That's who took care of me, yes, when I had the flu last week. So, oh my gosh, that was amazing. We are going to log off and ask questions off the air. So if you're not here, I'm sorry, and if you have questions online, we'll answer those later. So she's on our Dani Williamson page. So, all right, I appreciate you, Ella. You can log us off. Listen, this Sunday night, no, you can't. Hold on, don't touch it yet. This Sunday night service, 7 o'clock, Dani Williamson Wellness is Tanya Grabby, who owns Tennessee Family Doulas. And if you don't know what a doula is, if you're out of the childbearing age, you're probably not interested in any of this, but doulas help women through labor and delivery. And I was the very first doula in Western Kentucky. Dani the doula in Paducah, Kentucky. And it was a mouthful, and you don't want to be the first of anything in Paducah, Kentucky, trust me, because it was a rough road. And the doctors were not fond of me initially. But she owns an amazing company, and postpartum doulas and pregnancy doulas and all this. So that's going to be fun. Sunday night, 7 o'clock, Dani Williamson Wellness. Ella, thank you for running the camera. You guys have a great weekend. Be safe, and we'll see you soon. Next week, maybe.